Okay, back on. Oh, let me adjust my camera up a little bit. I don't want you to think I'm not bald. Cut my head off, so let me just adjust that just a hair. Now I guess you can clearly see I'm bald. I guess this tape is kind of turning into a David history, and that brings up some negative feelings in me because Jeannie stole, is the right word in my mind, all of my tapes and the pictures of the kids and everything about our family for 18 years, and in that group of thefts she took several videotapes that I made over 18 years and never shared them, never showed them, and just hoards them. So anyway, be that as it may, I guess this tape is pretty much a life history combining hundreds of things that I put in other tapes. But anyway, Sandra. After Jeannie, I married Sandra, who I met in Colorado. And you know, again, I'm being old. I don't remember how I met Sandra or whatever, but anyway, I knew Sandra was a very unusual person. You know, I feel sorry for handicapped people. I see myself as a handicapped person, and I just felt that I would learn to love her, and that she was a good person at that time. At the time that I married Sandra, she was a lesbian. I didn't know that at the time, but she was being prosecuted by the Attorney General of the state of Colorado for being a licensed therapist. She has a master's degree, and she was a licensed counselor therapist in the state of Colorado. And she brought one of her woman clients home, and they showered together and made love and had sex, and the state of Colorado thought that maybe that was a little inappropriate. I had to agree, but she was my wife, and I tried to protect her. I got her out of that lawsuit. She didn't go to jail, and she didn't get prosecuted, and we finally ended up in Paso Robles, California, and there we decided to open a residential care center for emotionally disturbed and handicapped children. And we got approval from the city of Paso Robles, and we got a grant. I don't remember if it was $10,000 or $20,000 to help build the facility, and we did everything on the up and up. I wrote all of the nonprofit corporation articles of I forget what you call them, articles of incorporation, and designed the building and its alarm systems and all of the details. Well, again, a long story short, we built up there a modular, two large modular homes that we built a room between them, connecting them. And we had 5,000 square feet and 8 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms, and we were ready to bring kids into the facility, and we brought one kid in. We did start. We bought a new car and a new van for the residential building, and I was a director and the director of the board of trustees and all that kind of stuff. And a long story short, somehow the state of California found out that Sandra had her license revoked in Colorado, and some of the details to it, which when you're a social worker, you know, the details of being a lesbian, that's in and of itself, that's not a big deal. But bringing one of your clients home that is paying you for counseling was really a judgment that a 40-year-old woman, I guess, in my opinion, should have never done, in the state of Colorado's opinion, and frankly the state of California agreed with us. So her ability to be in the facility was questioned by the state of California. Not that they questioned her to be a counselor. That was already decided. She was not going to be a counselor, And then the Department of Social Services studied her case, and I defended her, and I spent hundreds of hours on the computers and the hearings. I went to Los Angeles and represented her and whatever. And she was ordered off of the facility. Now, here I am again, and in my mind, a moral decision. We had over, whatever, maybe $200,000 invested in this project, and the state of California said, your wife has to live somewhere else. Now, Genevieve, she'd already been born. She was 2 years old. I was saying to myself, well, my wife has to live off grounds. Where does the baby go? Does she stay on grounds with me? That's her home. Or does she go home with mother? And now I'm not divorced, but I don't have any visitation and association with Jenny. And we were pretty close. I spent a lot of time with Jenny. But a long story short, Sandra got kicked off the ranch. The ranch began to collapse because I didn't have a therapist. And her being banned from the ranch broke our family up, and so I divorced Sandra and went to Utah. Well, Sandra said to me before we got married, because I wanted to have one more baby, I thought I'd like to have one more baby girl, and Sandra said, well, I'd like to have a child. She was 40. And she said to me, after she's heard some of these women that I've been married to who withheld children from me to punish me, she said to me, well, David, you know, I would never keep you away from your baby. I'm glad I can laugh, because when the divorce went down in San Luis Obispo, she got a restraining order against me that I had to have supervised visits with Jenny, which cost me $85 an hour to have 2 social workers sitting with me while I sat in their office visiting my child. Well, I drove there a couple times from Utah and then finally saw this ain't gonna work. And Sandra has withheld Jenny ever since. And the restraining order was for 5 years. It's basically up now. But again, it's a moral decision. Do I inject my life and my personality and fatherhood into a relationship with Jenny? She's never had a father. Is it for me? Is it for Jenny? Is it the best thing for Jenny? At this particular point in my age and experience, I say probably not. I would disrupt her life, and I don't want to do that. I made a very similar choice with Michelle and Nicole, that it was better for them that they weren't around me, that they were raised by a single female parent. So I haven't seen Jenny. She's 8 years old now, and I haven't had any contact with Sandra because of the restraining order. And she was the one that specifically said, I would never take your child. But you know, I've learned, and I guess I'm going to inject here, I've been married a lot of times, and women are pretty much the same. If you have children and you get divorced, you might as well bend over and kiss your butt goodbye and your children goodbye. But anyway, let's not get into that philosophy. So, now comes my current wife. We've been married 5 years now. And again, I don't want to extend this video beyond what the cameras and YouTube will take. I met Mercy on the phone and computer. She lived in the Philippines, a little town called Butuan on Mindanao Island, and we got to know each other pretty well on the computer. There wasn't too much we didn't know about each other, and I flew to Butuan to marry her. We met for the first time, and in the Philippines you have to spend at least 11 days there before you can get married. And we did, and I met her parents, and we lived in their home with them, and her family, brother, and grandparents, and we decided to get married. And then we did, and we again got married in a Mormon chapel, because I didn't want half her family excluded from the ceremony. I think it's a very cruel thing for a cult to ban your best friends and your parents and relatives from a marriage, which is the most important day of a girl's life, because everybody's not giving the Mormon Church tithing money and members of their religion. But be that as it may, I happened to be laying upstairs in bed and listening to the Beach Boys on my earphones. And this is my story, and I'm sticking with it because I don't believe in a God. I do believe there's some type of force in the universe, but Jesus and some of these other ideas I don't subscribe to anymore. But I was laying there listening to the Beach Boys, and suddenly I had, I'm not going to say a voice because I've grown up and I've shed that cult spirituality, but I had a very, very strong feeling of about taking Abigail, one of Mercy's nieces who I had met, who was only 8 years old, back to the United States. And I wasn't quite sure, you know, if I was just being bipolar and having a delusion or whatever. And when I called down to the kitchen where Mercy was, if you want to call it a kitchen in the Philippines, I said, I just had a really strong feeling about something. What was it? And she said, well, it's going to take me about 10 minutes to figure out what it was. And then she called back up and she said, it's about Abigail. And I was then pretty comfortable that I was feeling, thinking, receiving, whatever it is, my own desires and future. And so I said to myself, it's ridiculous. I can't take a Filipino child back to the United States. You know, the adoption processes and immigrations and visas, they're thousands and thousands of dollars. And, you know, I'm 60 years old. In those days, I guess I was 55, 58. And, again, a long story short, her little sister, Allison, said, well, if David's going to take Abigail back to the United States, why won't he take me? Yeah, that broke my heart. I said, all right, I'll take both of you. So I stayed in the Philippines. You have to be there 2 years to adopt. Mercy had been with the girls 2 years. And a long story short, again, we had to get attorneys and social workers. They're much more stringent in the Philippines on adoptions. And I had to appear in court 2 times, and I had to go to the circuit court there, and then it had to go to the Supreme Court, and then it actually had to go to the president of the Philippines for approval. And we'd had psychological investigations, the kids and me and Mercy, and so finally I was able to immigrate Mercy first, and the kids stayed in the Philippines. I put them in private school because it was going to take me a long time to get them visas to enter them into the United States because they were not citizens. They were married to an American citizen. In the old days, that made them citizens, but not these days. So again, another long story short, I got them immigrated, and we stayed in Manila for a couple of weeks, and then through the U.S. Embassy, and they came to the United States. And it's been a good life. Mercy stands up for herself. She's a wonderful little wife. She's got a great sense of humor. She's tiny. My girls are tiny. Mercy still speaks her languages. She knows 2 Filipino dialects and English. And she's been working at Walmart for 3 years. I continue on disability and supervise the girls in the daytime, take them to school, bring them home, help them with their homework, make them take baths, and Abigail plays classical piano. So I take her to piano lessons, and they're just sweet kids. They really have made a lot of friends and have been very accepted at their school. And so that's kind of where I am and where my marriages have been and whatever. And so I'm going to summarize, and you know me, that could be 10 hours, that I love all of my children. I'd like to have relationships with all of my children. I'm not going to change my religion or my thought process or my culture and or my studies. I do have 2 master's degrees. I did go to 4 years of seminary in the Mormon Church. I did graduate from BYU requiring 35 credits of religion. I was a temple worker for the Mormon Church. I was in 2 elders quorum presidencies and 1 state presidency in Massachusetts for a short period of time as the executive secretary. And I've read the Journal of Discourses, and I've read all of church history. I have been to Joseph Smith's home where he was born. I've been to the Sacred Grove. I've been to the Hill Cumorah, where supposedly these gold plates were found. And I've been in Nauvoo. I've seen Hiram and Joseph's tombs. I've been to the reorganized church in Jackson County, Missouri. The temple site of the Mormon church I guarded with my son Dan for 2 or 3 days before a festival took place there. I was active in the Mormon church for almost 50 years, so I have a lot of day-by-day experience with a lot of people. And I have studied the history of Joseph Smith and the doctrines of the Mormon church, and I've come to the conclusion that I don't want my name associated with it, and I do believe that it's fraudulent. There were no gold plates, and Joseph Smith was, you know, all the things that we all know that he was. If you go on the internet, the Mormon church tells you things that are different, but if you search for yourself, you find more than interest in Joseph Smith. He married 2 14-year-old girls. I would not call him a prophet, I would call him a pedophile. But again, I'm prejudiced. If my kids want to be Mormons, hey, if that floats their boat, that's fine. Rebecca is a Jehovah's Witness, that's fine with me. I've got a couple of kids that are inactive in the Mormon church, and others that are married in the temple and are active, and that doesn't make any difference to me. But to them, and the way the cult has taught them, and their parents, mothers, they generally hate me and think that I'm godless and that I'm going to hell, and you know, all those things that religious people believe. Religious people are good, so they get points to go to heaven. Since atheists don't believe in going to heaven, we do good things because they're good things. We don't expect a reward. So I'm happy, fairly healthy, up and around, drive the car. We just came off a vacation for 10 days in Vegas and Laughlin and Malibu Beach and whatever. So I invite my children. Amy has emailed me. I'm not sure what the motivation there is, because she was a daddy's girl, and she hasn't had contact until just the last 3 or 4 weeks. So half of my kids I have no contact with because they are Mormons, and their church has taught them to basically hate their parents if they're not members. So I'm happy. I'm healthy. We have a new condo. We have 2 brand new cars, 2011 cars, and credit, and good kids, and moral kids, and they befriend everybody regardless of their religion, their sexual orientation, their color, their background, and I'm very proud of that. I basically taught my other kids the same principles, but the Mormon church was stronger. They left more of an impression and fear on my children to talk to me and have relationships with me. So that's pretty much the summary. Mercy and I are happy, 5 years of marriage. We don't fight. She doesn't paint herself green. She doesn't sell my house without my notice. And basically a good person. She doesn't steal my kids in the middle of the day and just leave a note on the table. So that's where I'm kind of coming from. I love all of my children. I invite them to write. I've had children say to me, "Dad, don't write. I don't want any communication with you." And I have honored that. And some people say, "Well, see, you didn't want to see them anyway." Well, I do want to see them. I want to see my grandchildren. I have, I don't know, 41 or 42 grandchildren. And Sadie, Michelle's oldest daughter, just got married. So I'm sure I'm going to be a great-grandfather here in the next month or the next year or 2. So I'll leave this, that I love my kids. I'd like to have relationships with them. I've learned to be happy without them. And if they want a relationship, that's fine. And whatever kind, whether it's an email or Facebook or come out and visit me or can I live with you, I'm open to all of that. So thank you for looking at the video. I love my kids. I love all of you. And I certainly respect the mothers of my children. They've been good mothers. And this is the end of my video. Thank you for watching.